All right. Welcome back, Laura Dumin. I think you're our first repeat guest here.
Okay.
So thank you. You were very early on in season one, which was over 20 episodes ago. So it's been a while. So thanks for coming back, and we have a lot to talk about today. So why don't we start with you reminding folks? Oh, kitty cat!
Yes.
Yay! Reminding folks who you are, what you do, but what specifically, what you've been doing since we last talked.
Sure. I teach mostly English Composition 1 and Composition 2, as well as technical writing and the technical writing specialty courses. I'm also the faculty-facing AI coordinator for our campus, so hoping to continue to lead us well, I guess. Um, and since we last talked, I would say to an extent, not much has changed in that I'm still talking with my students about AI, giving them the chance to use it, having them reflect on their use. And for the most part, my students are still doing a really great job with that.
Great.
And I'm continuing to not have concerns about the cheating and not have major concerns about students making poor choices for their overall learning. So, to that extent, things are kind of the same.
Okay. I know you've been experimenting with stuff, but we talked about last time what you've been doing, and I think since that podcast episode aired, there was a couple times, at least on social media, where you have reflected on the fact that you're privileged to teach smaller classes, and maybe that's easier to do some of the things that you're doing. And recently, the Design for Learning podcast by Notre Dame, which is the host of which is Jim Lang, who everybody knows. I was on, and he posted about it on LinkedIn and focused on the part where I said that yes, we should trust students. We should trust that they're humans and they're going to make some bad decisions under stress and pressure, just like all humans do, and that we shouldn't expect students to be superheroes who can resist all temptations and all opportunities, right? And I use that example of like, if you're trying to be healthy and you have a sweet tooth, you don't put donuts on your counter and force yourself to stare at them. You take all the sweet stuff out of your kitchen, at least until you've lost that sweet tooth and maybe you can resist them and you buy them for your kids again, and you're able to resist them, right? But I don't know that you and I have a different take, but I think you agree students are humans and they're going to make bad decisions under stress and pressure. And yet, I think that maybe, we can touch upon what does that look like in your class versus is that reasonable for a 400, 500, 600 person class? And is what's reasonable in an in-person class the same as what's reasonable in an online asynchronous class?
All right, let me try and break this down here.
Yeah.
So, it's going to be a couple different answers. So, number one, I do trust students with the understanding that they are usually 18 to 24 years old. Their brains are still developing.
Mhm.
Many of our students are semi non-traditional in that they are working 20 to 40 hours a week to support
Mm.
themselves. They may also have family obligations, so what I see is that when we put together assignments, we need to consider who our students are holistically.
Mm.
So I'm not going to have students reading 500 pages a week and pretending that my class is the only class that they're doing. I'm looking at it and I'm going, okay, what other classes do they probably have? They're probably taking 2 to 3 other classes. So what does their workload probably look like? What do I have to teach? What can I choose to teach? How
Mm.
can I do things in ways that allow students to have space to fail upwards if they're
Yeah.
going to fail, right? Because we know that some of the best learning happens when you fail upwards. So something didn't work out, let's, what do we call it? Do a postmortem on it, figure out what didn't work, and then try something different.
Mhm.
And sometimes students are going to make poor choices in how they're using AI. We know this, right?
Mhm.
Um, so I'm going to stop that for just a second and move back to the idea of privilege.
Yeah.
So, me teaching 20 to 24 students in a classroom gives me a lot of ability to interact with my students individually. I have not to
And
this
I'm
point.
interrupting. Even
Oh, yeah.
in online asynchronous classes?
Yes.
Okay.
We are capped at 24.
No, but I meant you're able
Oh,
to get to know them even in online
I
async.
try. I
Okay.
try.
Okay.
Let me handle all in person
Yeah.
first, and then I'll switch over
Okay.
to async. So with with the smaller classes, I'm still able to read everybody's papers.
Right.
I can hear what their voices sound like. I know what a first year composition student paper should sound like versus what a senior or graduate student paper should sound like. So if somebody's coming in talking to me about some really deep details about a film that don't seem like something that a first year student would talk about, we're going to have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and going back to my async class for a second, so I did teach asynchronous composition over the summer.
Yep.
And I read everybody's papers. So I had an idea of what they sounded like, the word choices that they would use, the way that they would come at their arguments. And I still have chosen not to use any of the AI tools to give feedback.
Okay.
So I know that people like Anna Mills are using it and they're using it well. Like, I really appreciate what Anna's doing. She
Mm-hmm.
and I are just taking different pathways forward on that. So I can talk to my students and I can say, I can see that you used AI here because they identify that they've used it. And it doesn't sound like you, or this information isn't helping to move the argument forward. It's really
Right.
superficial, that sort of thing. So I'm talking to them about that, and I am trying to build relationships with my online students
Mm-hmm.
as well. It's harder because if they don't choose to Zoom with me or if they're not emailing with me,
Yeah.
then they're not getting that full relationship building, right? Um, Whereas with my in-person students, I can really concentrate on that relationship building and we can talk about what is learning and why is it important to you and why are you taking this class? What can you get out of it? And I think that relationship building really helps to influence how students choose to use AI.
Mm.
I think, you walk into a 200-person lecture hall for your biology class and the professor, you don't know them, they don't know you. I have very vivid memories of my own undergraduate lecture hall
Mhm.
classes. And there's no relationship there. So it's like, I don't care necessarily if I'm doing things I'm not supposed to if this
Yeah.
professor doesn't know me personally.
Yeah.
But if this professor does know me personally because we have those small classes, I care more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So yes, there is definitely, I think, privilege, and there's privilege in me having the time because I'm only teaching right now a 3-3 load.
Mm.
So smaller classes and a 3-3 load
Yeah.
and students who want to be there.
Well, to be fair though, you're only teaching a 3-3 load because you have other responsibilities you've taken on. So
That
it's
is true.
like,
Right. So
it's
yes. So there is a lot of work with the AI stuff
yeah.
as well.
Right. So it's not like you're sitting around at the beach and not having to work because you're only doing a 3-3 load.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, okay, so you said you're not using it for feedback yet. You respect like people like Anna Mills who are experimenting with that. So I do have to ask you what you think of the new announcement of OpenAI putting ChatGPT into Canvas. And part of the big reason for that was helping instructors be more efficient. They kept saying in the press release they weren't going to replace teachers, and yet at the same time said LLMs can do your grading, LLM can do the feedback, LLM can do the quizzes for you, LLM, blah, 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 blah. So what say Laura Dumin? Because a lot of people would say that that's part, like Susan Bloom would say, that's part of the schoolishness of what we're doing, right? It just
Mhm.
feeds that schoolishness infrastructure which doesn't support learning. So what was your reaction to that?
Number one, we don't have Canvas, and I think I've never been more happy about that. Um, okay. Can we just tackle the elephant in the room? I have probably never saved any time from using AI,
Me neither.
right?
I keep
So,
wondering why these people are telling me I could save time because I never
no, no, never saved time. What
no.
I have been able to do is I have been able to get maybe a larger range of quiz questions that I wouldn't
Yes.
have had, right?
Yes.
So maybe I can make quiz A and quiz B instead of having to come up with, really bad questions.
It is
So
really helpful for that.
yes, I've been able to do deeper literature reviews because I can use something like Perplexity and it
Mhm.
can lead me to places, and then I find articles I might not have otherwise found.
Yes.
And then I can mine those lit or those reference pages and go from there.
Yeah.
So it's not saving me time, it's broadening my perspective, maybe.
Yep.
And I think that's one of the problems. So we keep getting sold this bill that it's going to give us back all this time. It doesn't.
Yeah.
I think it maybe allows us to go down different rabbit holes, which is also great and definitely has value. I I worry. So I've been teaching since 2005, so 20 years now. We're starting on my 21st year of teaching. And I feel like I've learned a lot over those years by failing, not always failing upward, um,
Mhm.
but by failures in the classroom, things that just really didn't work, by spending a lot of time in pedagogy groups and learning more about what good teaching looks like.
Mhm.
And I feel like for new instructors, especially, AI can boost their ability to have what looks like a really good course or a really good set of quizzes or whatever. But if they don't understand the reasons behind it,
Yes.
they may fail in ways that end up hurting their students.
Same with students using it without knowing how
Right,
it works or having that foundational knowledge they need to be able to critique
right,
the output that they're getting.
right.
Mhm.
Because, I've at some point I'm going to be building a course that I've never taught before, never taken before. I just haven't had a chance to build it because we don't quite need it yet.
Yeah.
But I used ChatGPT, Claude, and Perplexity to put together a 16-week syllabus and then to put together potential readings and activities. And those three together did a really great job. But I'm going to pick and choose from each of them and pull
Yeah.
what I know works and then go back through. And one of the other things I like to do is I like to take my calendar and lay out all of my courses on that calendar and all of my assignments and see if I'm
Mhm.
crunching myself anywhere,
Mm.
as well as make sure that I'm actually giving students enough time to think through
Mm.
things.
Yeah.
And I don't know that AI always does a good job of that.
Yeah.
So, I worry. And then I also worry that administrators are going to say, oh, you have more time now because we have AI, so let's stick another 6 students in your class.
Yeah. Or we'll give you one less teaching assistant for those with big classes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, I worry about all that too. I've always called myself kind of a skeptical optimist, but I was
Mhm.
recently listening to a podcast and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on which podcast it was, but they were talking to the author of a book called Hopeful Pessimism.
Mm,
And so now after that, listening to that episode, that's what I've been referring to myself as a hopeful pessimist. And that's how I responded to that post, the posts about the Canvas integration is like, yeah, I'm still hopeful that it will help with some things. And I'm pessimistic because of the motives
mhm,
behind it. I'm not sure are for student learning or faculty well-being or faculty workload or any of that, right? That's
mhm.
still I'm still pessimistic about the alignment. Let's say call
Yes,
it the alignment problem, shall
yes,
we? Let's use their language.
I like that. Yeah, I call myself a cautious optimist
Yeah. So,
because I
yeah,
can see lots of places where these things can help. Like, I keep coming back to accessibility and neurodiversity and what it looks
right.
like there. Like, there's a lot of really good stuff there. But then if you have a company who says, well, we only need 5 people now instead of 20,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're overworking their people because they think that they can, then you have burnout,
Yeah.
and I think there's a lot of push and pull there.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think we would, I've been saying this a lot lately. I think the issue is the general purpose LLMs. And if we were doing more of the narrow or specific LLMs like AlphaFold or AlphaGo that are trained specifically for something, they're going to be tools for humans to be
Mhm.
much more effective humans versus trying to take our jobs and trying to be smarter than us and trying to take over.
Yes.
I just don't see how that's going to be good for any of us. But anyways, okay, so you're able to trust your students because of a couple of reasons. One, you get to know them.
Yes.
Two, you get to know their voice. Three, you're able to, when they do fail, either they fail to disclose accurately how much they used AI, or they fail to disclose it at all, and you've got the sense. You're able to have a conversation with them, kind of dissect that, and see that as an opportunity for learning and correction,
Hmm.
rather than as a violation. Probably because also you're doing drafts or you're doing multiple
Right.
rewrites are possible. So I always say to folks, hey, if it's in a draft, it's not an integrity violation.
Oh, okay. It's a learning moment
It's a
because,
learning moment. That's the kind of point of drafts, is
right,
that I get to learn what I'm doing wrong, whether it's an honest wrong or a dishonest wrong.
right.
Kind of doesn't matter, right? And so I like that idea. I was another episode that's we're airing is with Jeannie Law,
Hmm.
and she said that she likes to chooses confusion over corruption.
Hmm.
And again, I think in writing you can do that because it's iterative, and it's versus in a social class where it's like they assign a final research paper and that's it. That's the
Right.
product that gets handed in, and then you have no chance to correct, right? The
Well,
confusion.
and I think you hit on something about where the trust issues come in as well,
Yeah.
and where student motivation comes in. So if I've got drafts, and I do,
Yep.
then again, you're right. Students can fail to do the right thing for whatever reason,
Yep.
but if all you have is one major paper, so maybe you've got three tests and a final paper, and your
Ugh.
grade hangs on all of these things, you have to really put a lot of effort in. And maybe you're going to make poor choices because your grade matters to you. Maybe you're on scholarship, maybe you're hanging by a thread before you're on
Want
probation,
to go to
whatever
law
it is.
school? Yeah.
Right, whatever it is. And so I think that's the difference. Although I think you and I have talked a little bit on LinkedIn, or maybe last time we talked about how there's kind of this fallacy that more points opportunities keep students from making bad
Right.
choices.
The multiple low stakes assessments. Yeah.
Yeah. And, low stakes assessments have worked for me. But again, it's that relationship building. And I think without the relationships,
Hmm.
students are going to do what they're going to do.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard to care in an anonymous environment, right? If you
Mhm,
feel anonymous, and this is why we see the online kind of posts that we see, is because people, even though even when their name's attached to it, they feel more anonymous. They
mhm,
say things they wouldn't and do things they wouldn't maybe normally do. And so this kind of brings us to the asynchronous online assessment. So the one of the other things Jim Lang and I talked about in that Designed for Learning podcast was he liked the idea in our book that David and I wrote about you could keep your written assessments, 300-person class,
mhm,
but you could follow that up with oral assessments if to give students a chance to explain a question they got wrong, or if you think why is this so much worse than their homeworks, which
mhm.
which they could have cheated on, that kind of thing, right? So he really liked that idea, and even in writing classes of pairing an oral conversation with a written assessment. Here's the problem though, and this was just out on LinkedIn, where now, there was a story about how job applicants from like North Korea are deep faking as Americans to get American remote jobs. And
Mhm.
the tech is just becoming more and more convincing. So how do you even have an online asynchronous secure kind of, we say oral assessments can add to the security when a contract cheating provider, like if I've been writing, probably not for your course because you would figure it out way before the oral assessment, but I mean, a contract cheating provider could deep fake as the student and do the oral assessment with a teacher.
Yeah, yeah, that is one of the issues, and I don't think that we can necessarily get around that because you have the tech now with
Yeah.
things like Hey Gen, where you can just stick somebody's picture up and then, make a video from their mouth movements. One of the other issues with that and why I haven't done it is for async classes, we are not allowed to require students to meet with us at all.
At all.
At all. No.
Yeah. See, I get it.
And yeah,
And
and
I
so there's
don't because it's like, but we can make an appointment at a time that's mutually convenient for both of
right,
us.
right. But we are not allowed to require it. We can ask
Wow.
it, we can suggest it, but they don't have to do it. They also don't have to submit a video of them defending their answers or anything like that. Like we can't require any of that.
Wow.
right now. So
And is that so that is eh, I'm going to make an assumption here. You can correct me if I'm wrong. That's privileging certain important values that we hold, like access and privacy, over integrity,
it is,
instead of trying to
yes.
find a ground that upholds both all values.
Yes, yes. I would love to have synchronous online courses. We don't have those right now either.
Oh, wow.
That's
Okay.
yes, it's the way our university has gone, and that's
Yes.
fine. Everybody's doing different things. But I think you're right about the contract cheating. You're right also. So think about it. Maybe James has been the one writing everything, but John's the one who shows up for the meeting.
Yeah.
And you don't know
Uh,
because you've never
yeah.
met them. It's an online class, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know that oral assessments are the best way to go, and I don't know how to do that necessarily.
Yeah.
Um, I'm still
It's,
finding that my papers are working so
yeah.
far still.
Yeah. Yeah.
And part of it, I think, is that my students are interested in the topic. So the first one is they have, in Comp 1, they have to write about who they are as a writer. So what kinds
Meaningful,
of writing do they
specific.
do?
Hmm.
And then there's a paper where they have to physically go to a place and look at it for accessibility issues with whichever disability they choose. And then they get to do a rhetorical analysis of an advertisement. And I usually suggest Super Bowl ads because those are funny. Um, and so students seem to enjoy those papers,
Yeah. Well, those that gets back to the meaningful or authentic assessments, which again we know to all the audience, we know there's no magic bullet solution
right?
to cheating, but helping to
Right.
increase intrinsic motivations, and remind students that they're human, they love to learn.
Hmm.
I was talking with this about this in another episode with Josh Eiler. And it's again the because he wrote a book about the science of learning before he wrote the failing our future
Hmm.
current one. And it's this we love to learn as humans. We wanted to walk, we wanted to talk, we wanted to do all of these things or whatever, and then something happens. And again, Susan Bloom would argue it's the schoolishness stuff that happens that kills the motivation to learn and turns it into a game.
And that's another thing that I've kind of switched away from over the years is that a lot of my classroom, I try, and it kind of depends on the semester as to how well students participate, but I try to do a lot of in-class discussions. So we are learning argumentation skills. How
Yes.
do we agree or disagree respectfully
Yes.
without calling names, without saying that somebody's wrong,
Yeah.
personally, like, I hate
Yeah.
you because you think this.
Yeah.
And I think that those kind of skills really matter. And if we want students to feel that our classrooms are important, yes, that authentic assessment, but also letting them talk with each other and hear from each other and see how it matters in their lives. Like, if I'm taking a biology course, how does this impact me? I,
Yeah.
I personally love the biological sciences. They are my favorite science. And it was really helpful to have some biological science knowledge when COVID hit,
Yeah.
right? Because I
Yeah.
could understand. I was like, oh, this is really cool and also really scary.
Yeah.
So if we can find ways to relate whatever it is that we're teaching back to our students' lives
Yeah.
and how this impacts them, it tends to help.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's not going to help the enrolled persons, but we always try and kind of leave those out of the conversation, most
Yeah.
conversations, because they're the exception, not the norm, and there's not much we can do with them other than catch them and kick them out.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we have the solution, actually. I do have the solution. So,
Okay.
no more, if we're trying to develop in students human durable skills to make sure they have added value over the machines, then no more asynchronous classes. I have been known to say on social media, I don't think online learning is dead, but I think online assessments are dead. And I mean that for both in-person classes and online classes.
Mhm.
So no more asynchronous and no more classes over 30. Huh? Solution.
Oh, solutions.
Yes. We have to
So,
figure out again the access issue. I think we can
yes.
figure out because as I challenged back, I think it was Anna Mills, I challenged back that said, like, it sounds like you're talking about access to assessments, not access to learning.
Mm-hmm.
Humans can access learning everywhere these days.
Right.
They don't need us. They need us for structure, they need us for motivation, they need us for guidance and mentorship and coaching and helping them push through those
Mm-hmm.
plateaus of learning, and they need us for secure assessment and certification of learning.
Mm-hmm.
And so can we figure out how to make that piece accessible but upholding integrity at the same time?
And, one of the concerns I've had about asynchronous is that sometimes students come to them and they think that they're going to be the self-paced online learning, and they're not.
They're not.
And
There's
then
still a
student
semester.
Yeah, yeah. And students think, oh, I can just, it's going to be easier. There's not going to be as much rigor. I'm not going to have to show up. I
Yeah.
had some students this past summer who unfortunately did not seem to get any of my emails that started before the class started saying you have meaningful interactions with your peers every week. There are specific start and end dates every week.
Yeah.
You can't just come in week 3 and finish everything.
Yeah.
Um, so I do think like there are a lot of problems with asynchronous,
Yeah.
but we also have students like, the parent who gets home at 6 p.m. and makes dinner and does everything, gets the kids in bed, and then works on the class from 10 to 11 or 10 to midnight or
Mhm.
whatever. They might not be able to be there during the day, or
Mhm.
the student who is deployed to another country and in another
Mhm.
time zone, right?
Yeah.
um, they still deserve to have access. And right,
Access, yeah. I mean, yeah, but again, let's make sure in our dialogue we're separating access to learning versus access to assessment
well,
of learning.
but they deserve to have access to the assessment because a lot of
Sure.
times that assessment is what then gets them the degree and gets them the credentials to get the job.
Right.
And
And yet we can't throw integrity out with the access bathwater.
right,
Yeah.
right. And that becomes hard.
I think we
And
can figure it out. I really do. I really
okay,
do. I think we're a lot of smart people that, and I think as institutions, we always say there's not enough money, there's not enough time, there's all these obstacles. But if we prioritize the values and we don't see them as an opposition to each other, but
mhm.
as bedfellows, then I think we can figure it out. This is my mission in life.
Well, can we start number one by moving back and taking K-12 and making it interesting again? Like, let's
Well,
start
okay,
there.
that might be out of
Um, because we're
yeah,
moving we're moving into seventh grade this year, and I'm already starting to see how we're losing some of that joy,
engagement.
right? And the
Engagement and
engagement and
joy.
the why am I even here? Why do I have to do this? I hate
Ah,
school. And I think if we want to fix higher ed and asynchronous and integrity along with it, we're going to have to start back at the beginning with bringing joy back into learning.
yeah, well, you lost me there, Laura. No, but I'll see if I can get some of our university educators who are in us, our who are K through 12 educators of future K through 12 teachers. Maybe I'll
Yes.
get some of those folks on and we'll have those conversations. But I want to end our conversation today because we're almost out of time with this idea you brought up earlier is like you're trying to teach your students how to engage in constructive debate and disagreement in a human way, right? Like I was always told you can tell someone your idea is, I don't like your idea. Like we say to our kids, right? It's like, I don't like your behavior, but I love you, right? And so hate the sin, love the sinner kind of deal. Like this has existed since the beginning of time. And yet, you and I both seen online within our community of educators who care about learning and pedagogy and the impact of artificial intelligence, good or bad, on
Hmm.
education. Some, I would say, rhetoric that is not helpful and it's not collegial. And,
Yes.
and some of it I would call it ridicule and bullying. Um, how do we model? I mean, how do we help ourselves and our colleagues model that very thing we're trying to teach students?
Yeah, I think one thing that helps me sometimes is pretending the person is right in front of me. Would I
Yeah,
actually say this to their face?
right.
Right.
Most of the time, the answer is no.
Right.
if
And
it's if it's mean.
right. And if I write a longer post, I usually try to read back through it a few times and hear it said in different ways.
Hmm.
What is this going to sound like to somebody who's not in front of me or who doesn't know
Know
me
me.
or
Yeah.
who doesn't get that I'm being sarcastic or whatever
Yeah.
here? Um, and then I think one of the other things that we have to come back to is that for some people, especially it feels like for writing instructors, AI is, if for some of them, almost like an existential threat to who
Yeah.
they are as
Yeah.
humans or who they are as instructors. And ridiculing them isn't going to help. We also have the hypesters who are out here hyping everything about it's going to save you
Everything.
time. Like, I want a robot that's going to mow my lawn and do my laundry so I don't have to,
Yeah. So I
right? So
can, as we say, so I can write poetry and I can draw
right,
art and I can, yeah.
right. So I can read novels that are interesting to
Yes.
me rather than
Yes.
having to be out there doing all the work.
Yes.
I don't want bots that are going to write up my thoughts on something. Like that doesn't work for me. So how do we connect with other people as humans and see where are their fears? Where are their excitements? Where can we find common ground?
Yeah.
And then I have also learned that sometimes we write all of the things out and then we erase them and we walk away. And I think that's something that not enough people are doing. They're not listening to their own words in a different voice, and they're not saying everything they need to say and then erasing it and walking away.
Yeah. Their own instinct of like, I shouldn't hit send. I shouldn't have hit send. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with all of that. I also agree that if we pay attention to some things like crucial conversations, we should never assume intent. We should never assume feelings. There was a lot to the folks writing about resisting AI. People said, "Oh, you're fearful," and you don't know that. You don't know that it's
Right.
coming from a place of fear.
Right.
And so, subscribing to other people, their emotions is never a winning strategy.
No. And I think that's one of the things that also people who aren't trained in rhetoric may miss that words mean things.
Yes.
And if I say, I'm disappointed in what you did. I wish you would have done it differently versus I can't believe you did that and
Yeah, yeah,
blah
yeah.
blah, right? So when we use our words and we think about what a word means and when we think about how others are reading those words put together in those sentences, what does that mean and how are we coming across? So I think it comes back to yes, we can't put interpretations on other people's work, but also we have to think about how other people are going to interpret our
Yeah.
words.
Yeah. I love that. We could say it's like more than words, as Jonathan
Yeah.
Sawyer would say, right? I love that. And I think, you know what? I don't know that we need the hypesters, honestly, but we need the resistors. We need that voice because it
Yeah.
slows us down. It makes us think. You might not fully agree with it.
Yeah.
But it pauses you. If you're a thoughtful person, it pauses you. And I hope we need that kind of tension, right? To work
Mhm.
through these things because otherwise we might just all go down one road too fast and it might be in the wrong direction.
And that's why I like to follow a lot of different people and
Yeah.
read their ideas and go,
Yeah.
okay, this person said this was great, but then this other person said this thing wasn't great. Where's the
Yeah.
middle? What's
Where
happening
am
here?
I? Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's the nuance?
Yeah.
Both and is usually my
Yes.
response. So thank you, Laura, for coming on again. I really enjoyed that conversation and maybe we'll have you on at the beginning of episode or season 3 too.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.